Shok,
Hindan
sh-
means this Tivirveha.
जी, शोक्र साब्रता याज्ञिक कर्मभिर्वा त्रिय प्रोक्त पंसु अपि विबुधायुषा. Translation by Prabhupada ji ki jai. Translation: a civilized human being has three kinds of births. The first birth is by a pure father and mother, and this birth is called birth by semen. The next birth takes place when one is initiated by the spiritual master, and this birth is called Savitra. The third birth, called Yagnika, that takes place when one is given the opportunity to worship Lord Vishnu. Despite the opportunities for attaining such births, even if one gets the lifespan of a demigod, if one does not actually engage in the service of the Lord, everything is useless. Similarly, one's activities may be mundane or spiritual, but they are useless if they are not meant for satisfying the Lord. Purport. This seems to be a long purport, so we'll take it in pieces. The word Shakra Janma means taking birth by seminal discharge. Animals can take their birth in this way too. However, a human being can be transferred from the Shakra Janma as recommended in the Vedic civilization. Before the birth takes place or before father or mother unite, there is a ceremony called Garbhadhan Sanskara which must be adopted. This Garbhadhan Sanskara is specially recommended for high classes, especially the Brahmin caste. It is said in the Shastras that if the Garbhadhan Sanskar is not practiced among the higher castes, the entire family becomes Shudra. It is also stated in the age of Kali, everyone is Shudra due to the absence of Garbhadhan Sanskara. This is the Vedic system. According to Panchratrika system, however, even though everyone is Shudra due to the absence of Garbhadhan Sanskara, if a person has a little tendency to become Krishna conscious, he should be given a chance to elevate himself to the transcendental platform of devotional service. Our Krishna conscious movement adopts this Panchratrika Vidhi as advised by Srila Sanatan Goswami, who says, Yatha kanchanatam yati kam kamsyam rasa vidahanat tatha diksha vidahanena dvijatam jayate narnam. As bell metal, when mixed with mercury, is transformed to gold, a person, even though not golden pure, can be transformed into Brahmana or Dvija, especially simply by initiation process. This is Hari Bhakti Vilas 2.12. Thus, if a person is initiated by a proper person, he can be accepted as a twice born immediately. In our Krishna conscious movement, we therefore offer the student his first initiation and allow him to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. By chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly and following the regulative principles, one becomes qualified to be initiated as Brahmana. Because unless one is a qualified Brahmana, he cannot be allowed to worship Lord Vishnu. This is called Yagnika Janma. In our Krishna conscious society, unless one is twice initiated, first by chanting Hare Krishna and second by Gayatri Mantra, he is not allowed to enter the kitchen or the deity room to execute duties. However, when one is elevated to the platform on which he can worship the deity, his previous birth does not matter. Chandalo api dvijashreshto Hari Bhakti Parayana Hari Bhakti Vihinasha Cha Dvijopi Swapachadma. Even if one is born in the family of Chandal, if one is engages in devotional service of the Lord, he becomes the best of the Brahmanas. But even a Brahmana who is devoid of devotional service is of the level of the lowest dog eaters. If a person is advanced in devotional service, it does not matter whether he was born in a Chandal family, he becomes purified. As Srila Prahlad Maharaj said Viprad Dvishad Guna Yutad apravinda nabhap apradharavinde vimukhascha chvapacham varistham. Bhagavatam 7.9.10. Even if one is Brahmana and is qualified with all the Brahminical qualities, he is considered degraded if he is averse to worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if a person is attached to the service of the Lord, he becomes glorified even if he is born in a Chandal family. Indeed, a Chandal can deliver not only himself, but all his family predecessors. Without devotional service, even a proud Brahmana cannot deliver himself, but to speak of his family. In many instances of the Shastras, it has been seen even a Brahmana has become a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Malecha, or non-Brahmana. And there are many instances of one being born a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or lower caste, and in the 18th year, attaining elevation to the Brahminical platform by the process of initiation. Therefore, Narad Muni says, maybe we pause here and discuss whatever we read before going to the next one, what Narad Muni says. Or is it in line? Actually, it is in line. Maybe we should read that and then pause and discuss. So Narad Muni says, Yasya yal lakshanam lakshanam proktam pumso varnabhi varnabhiv yanjakam yad anyatrapi drishyeta tat taneva vinirdishet. Bhagavatam 7.11.35. It is not a fact that because one is born in Brahmana family but is actually a Brahmana, he has a better chance to become a Brahmana, but unless he meets all the Brahminical qualification, he cannot be accepted as such. On the other hand, if the Brahminical qualifications are found in the person of a Shudra, he can immediately be accepted as a Brahmana. To substantiate this, there are many quotations from Bhagavatam, Mahabharata, Bhagavad, Brahadwaja Samhita, and Panchratra, as well as many other scriptures. I think we can discuss this.
Only one paragraph left, Mataji.
Oh, okay, Ji. I'll read that one too, Prabhuji. As far as the duration of life of the demigods concerning Lord Brahma, it is said, Saharsha Yuga Parayantam Aharyad Brahmano Vidu Ratram Yuga Sahasrantam Peho Ratra Vido Jana. Bhagavad Gita 8.17. The duration of one day of Brahma is 1000 times greater than 4 yugas. Then the 4 yugas aggregating 43,20,000, I think, years, and the Brahma's night is the same duration. Brahma lives for 100 years of such days and nights. The word Vibhuddhayusa indicates that even if one gets a long lifespan, his lifespan is useless if he is not a devotee. A living entity is an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, and unless he comes to the platform of devotional service, his lifespan, good birth, glorious activity, and everything else is null and void. So beautiful verse by Prabhupada again, where Prabhupada is actually narrating how important is. It's not that birth dictates who we are. So he's saying the first birth that we get is, of course, from our father and mother, where our body is born, and that's called birth by seminal birth. The second birth that happens is through our spiritual master, where our spiritual master initiates us in chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's what they are naming it as a Savitra. And the third birth they are saying takes place when once we have chanted Hare Krishna Mahamantra and we have elevated ourselves to such a platform that the third initiation happens through our spiritual master again, which actually allows us to worship Lord Vishnu. So what he's trying to help us understand that at times it seems that, if it's a Brahman, it is true that only Brahman can worship Lord Vishnu. So what does that mean? In the age of Kali, nobody is real Brahman. So what does that look like for us? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been so merciful that they laid, and Narad Muni through Panchratrika system laid down that you don't necessarily have to be an official Brahman. If you are taking to like by birth, if you are taking to Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you are chanting, you are taking devotional service, you are taking prasadam and the devotee sangha, and you have raised yourself, you have started to purify yourself, you are still allowed, you can still be treated as a Brahman. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave an example through Haridas Thakur as well, who's born in a Muslim family. He never wanted to enter the temples. Yet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given him the authority of Namacharya because he himself purified. He was taking so many, he was doing so many Hare Krishna mantra, Mahamantra a day. He has purified himself and he is an Acharya. So that's one. And Prabhupada is clearly identifying the fact that, you know, even if I'm born in a Brahman family and I'm not taking to the vows of the Brahman family in the sense that I'm not serving Krishna or Vishnu and I'm just serving my senses through being Brahmana. So we can see today there are so many Brahmana who do so many chores just to get paid for something. That's not actual Brahmana. And if I'm born in such a Brahmanical family and I'm following such a Brahmana, there is no way I'll be able to get to where I need to go in devotional service. And there is no way I'll be able to get my families in that way either. So such kind of Brahmana is not a Brahmana. Prabhupada is clearly calling it out that such a Brahmana is lower than a Shudra even. What he's saying that by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly, one can get to the stage of Brahmana and worship Lord Vishnu. And a beautiful example is coming to my mind that Prabhuji has quoted so many times that, you know, you don't, even we can learn, even if somebody is from a Chandal, is like a Chandal in Kali or whatever, if they are expert in Krishna conscious science, we can learn from him. He is a Brahmana of a higher caste. Doesn't matter where he is born, doesn't matter what he has done in the past. If he knows Krishna conscious science, he knows the real goal of life and he's serving the real purpose. So we can learn from such a person. I think, that's, yeah, most of the quotations that he's giving here specify the same fact that if a living entity does not understand the real goal, that he's a part and parcel of Krishna and he's here in the human form of life to elevate himself to be the servant of Lord. If until we do not understand, we are no better than an animal who are born the same way as we are. So the purpose of life or the activities that we do or whatever we do is actually null and void. That's what I got out of it, Prabhuji and Mataji. Please comment or go ahead, Ji.
I mean, thank you, Mataji. There are many examples, I think, from Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, where the Brahmanas' wives, where the Brahmanas were sitting and doing the yajna, but when Krishna sent his covered boyfriends for food, they said, no, this is meant for yajna, whereas they didn't realize that the main purpose of the yajna was to give everything in offering to Krishna, whereas the Brahmana's wife understood that and they ran over to give Krishna the prasada. So the same way, like duration of Brahma's life is like 1,000 into 4 million years, and he lives 100 such years of days and nights, and living like the Prachetas, they like 10,000 years did the penance, and after that they had material life for, and they lived a material life for 10,000 years. So it's of no use if you cannot dovetail it to service of the Lord. And an important thing that Prabhupada is saying here is that the first thing. If one is initiated by a proper person, he can be accepted as twice born immediately, where the first initiation is allow him to chant Hare Krishna, which then regularly, if one follows the regulative principles and chants, one becomes qualified to be initiated as a Brahmana. So then the purification process of the Mahamantra is so much that it purifies one, whatever state one is at. To will be elevated to the state of a Brahmana to be able to offer service to the Lord, which is a exalted position to be able to directly offer service to the Lord. Hare Krishna. Would somebody else like to comment, please? Okay, we read the next verse. Would somebody like to read? I'll read. 4.331.11. Shrutena tapasa vakyam
Shrutena
vacho
tapasa vakyam
vachobhis chitta vrittibhihi
vasubhchitta vrittibhi
udya vakyam nipunaya
buddhya vakyam nipunaya
balendriya radhasa.
balendriya radhasa.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Without devotional service, what is the meaning of severe austerities? The process of hearing, the power of speech, the power of mental speculation, elevated intelligence, strength, and the power of service. Purport. From the Upanishads, Mundaka Upanishads 3.2.3 we learn Nayam Atma Pravachanena Abhyo Na Medaya Na Bahuna Shrutena Yam Evaisa Vrinute Tena Labhyas Tas Yesa Atma Vivrinute Tanum Swam. Our relationship with the Supreme Lord is never advanced by simple study of the Vedas. There are many Mayavadi sannyasis fully engaged in studying the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra and Upanishads. But unfortunately, they cannot grasp the real essence of knowledge. In other words, they do not know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then is the use of studying all the Vedas if one cannot grasp the essence of the Vedas? Krishna. The Lord confirms in Bhagavad Gita 15.15. Vedesha sarver aham eva vedyaha. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. There are many religious systems wherein penances and austerities are greatly stressed. But at the end, no one understands Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is therefore no point in such penance, tapasya. If one has actually approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he does not need to undergo severe austerities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is understood through the process of devotional service. In the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, devotional service is explained as Raja Guhyam, the king of all confidential knowledge. There are many good reciters of Vedic literatures, and they recite the works such as Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these professional readers manifest very good scholarship and exhibit word jugglery. Unfortunately, they are never devotees of the Supreme Lord. Consequently, they cannot impress upon the audience the real essence of knowledge of Krishna. There are also many thoughtful writers and creative philosophers, but despite all their learning, if they cannot approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are simply useless mental speculators. There are many sharp, intelligent people in this material world, and they discover so many things for sense gratification. They also analytically study all the material elements. But despite their knowledge and expert scientific analysis of the whole cosmic manifestation, their endeavors are useless because they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as our senses are concerned, there are many animals, both beasts and birds, who are very expert in exercising their senses more keenly than human beings. For example, vultures and hawks can go very high in the sky but can see a small body in the ground very clearly. This means that their eyesight is so keen that they can find an eatable corpse from a great distance. Certainly, the eyesight is much keener than human beings, but this does not mean that their existence is more important than that of a human being. Similarly, dogs can smell many things from a far distance. Many fish can understand by the power of sound that an enemy is coming. All these examples described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. If one's senses cannot help him attain the highest perfection of life, realization of Supreme, they are all useless. Hare Krishna. So, starting with the last paragraph, where Prabhupada is talking of the senses and how in each of the animals, the senses are developed for a particular thing. Like a hawk has to hunt, so its eyesight is developed. A dog has to smell things, and it's able to they're used for multiple things today for tracking. And fish can understand by the power of sound that an enemy is coming. But what do we do with our senses? If we do not use our eyes to see the archa form of the Lord, then we are wasting our eyesight. And if we do not use our ears to hear the pastimes of the Lord, then again, it is wasted. I mean, we hear mundane things like film music or anything that is not related to the Lord. Then the senses are totally wasted. And over time, they become degraded. They are not fine tuned for devotional service. For devotional service, we have to tune these senses to serve the Lord. Only then would they become sharper and sharper in service of the Lord. And if one starts this after the age of after 50 or 60, then one is going to find it more and more difficult to tune the senses in serving the Lord, because it has been tuned too much from a young age in only serving the material body. So this we can understand from the last paragraph that Prabhupada has written in his purport. And in the 15th chapter, the Lord himself says, Vedesya sarver aham eva vedyaha. So the entire purpose of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutras, the Upanishads, is to understand the Lord, is to understand by theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge everything about the Lord, everything about us being not the body but the spirit soul. But it's very difficult in today's age for somebody to be an expert in all of these texts and then practice it to become practice it in devotional service. So the only way that is possible in the Kali Yuga is, as Prabhupada says, is to chant, purify oneself, and slowly elevate oneself to be a qualified Brahmana, not just by birth. And this, the Lord himself says as Rajaguhyam, it's secretive knowledge. It's knowledge which is written in the Vedanta Sutras and Upanishads, and today any mundane person reading it would not be able to find out the secret. But the Lord has taken the essence of those secrets and told it himself in the Bhagavad Gita, and specifically the 9th chapter, where the essence of how one can practice devotional service. Hare Krishna. Would somebody else like to add to that, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Just one example coming to my mind. I was listening to Keshavan Prabhuji's lecture yesterday, and he was giving an example of how important is the devotee Sangha. And Prabhupada, by the first sentence, says, our relationship with the Supreme Lord is never advanced by simple study of the Vedas. He gave an example of Bharat Maharaj. He said, the reason for fall down for Bharat, one of the reason for Bharat Maharaj's fall down was he did not had anybody to advise, or he didn't had the devotee Sangha. So we can read as much as we want. We can simply study Vedas on our own. But if we do not associate with the devotees, or if we do not share Krishna's Leela, pastime, gun, or Roop, then the love for Krishna will not develop. That's why Prabhupada ji, the one way of taking it is Prabhupada ji saying we can never be advanced by simple reading of the Vedas. Like I can go alone. Bharat Maharaj did the same. He said, I'm so renunciate that I have left the entire Rajya and whatnot. I can read the Vedas on my own. And nobody was there to even guide and say, hey, you are getting attached with the deer. So if a devotee was there or a sadhu sangha was there, somebody could have pointed out that this is what's going on. But that clarifies from Prabhupada's first statement too, that simply by study of the Vedas, as you said, without leveraging our senses, mind, and intelligence, we will not be able to build our relationship with Krishna. Thank you, Jean. That's the example that came to my mind.
Hare Krishna. Would somebody else like to add to that, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanyapalam.
Good.
Actually, as regard our senses, Srimad Bhagavatam, the main thing is Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. We require to engage our senses in the devotion of Rishikesh, who is the master of senses. Because if we do not, these senses, they go haywire and they are the main cause of our fall down. So Srimad Bhagavatam only gives us very nice examples that how that even one strong sense can lead to the fall down or lead to the destruction of that body which possesses. So there are examples of 5 animals for the 5 senses in the Bhagavatam. So one is the eyes. Okay, that is the example of a moth. The moth, the eyes of the moth are very much attracted to the light of the fire, and that is why even though they cannot bear the heat, they are still so much attracted that they finally go into the fire and they burn themselves out. Then secondly is the ears. Okay, the deer is given as the example, in which it is said how a deer is caught. It is by a hunter. The hunter plays a melodious music on the flute, and the deer having this sharp sense of hearing, gets very attracted to that. And it follows the hunter, and it just happily walks into the trap of the hunter. Then third is the skin. The skin or the sense of touch. The example given is that of an elephant. How elephant is such a strong and powerful animal. It is impossible to hunt that or to catch hold of that animal. So this weakness is used, that a tree elephant is tied to a tree, and a neighboring a big a hole is dug in the ground, a large hole, and which is well covered with grass and mud and all. And when the elephant looks at the tree elephant, he wants to go and associate with her, wants to go and touch her. So he goes, and while doing that, he just falls into the trap that was laid down for him. Then the fourth is the tongue. So for the tongue, they give the example of the fish. That the fish, when a fisherman or somebody puts, along with a fishing hook, puts something to eat for the fish, a worm or something. And then the fish, although in spite of the fact that so much is available in the vicinity, in the sea, for the fish to eat, but this easy thing, easy food, gets the fish so attracted because it has an uncontrolled sense of the tongue. So it goes there, tries to eat it, and gets caught. And the fifth example is the nose, the sense of smell. That is, a bumblebee gets very attracted to the sense of smell, the fragrance coming out from a lotus flower. And it goes and sits there and it gets mesmerized by that. And in the evening, when the lotus closes, the bee is still being so mesmerized. Actually, the bee it is said that it can dig through the tree also. It has that instrument, a proboscis or something, through which it can dig through a very hard tree also, the bark of the tree. But because it is so mesmerized by the sense of smell in that lotus flower, that it just doesn't want to come out. It doesn't come out through the soft petals of the lotus. So the Bhagavatam is saying that in each of this example, just one sense of that animal was so strong, and that led to the destruction of the animal. But as far as human beings are concerned, all the senses are equally strong. So we can just imagine our position, that each sense is pulling us in different directions, okay, with different allurements. And in this day and age, we are facing so many of them. So that is why it is so important that we engage our senses continually in the service of Rishikesh, who is the master of senses, and try to fulfill his and gratify his senses so that we can continue our devotion. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. That example is very nice of the senses and how each of these animals get caught or fall prey to their senses, which is true for each of us too. Each of us fall prey to one sense which is, let's say, more dominating than the other. And further in that example today, for example, our ears are something that is open all the time. We can shut our eyes, we can stop smelling, we can, if required, not eat or not speak. But the ears are always open. And so it's very, very important that we always hear positive things, hear things about the Lord. When we chant, again, what we chant is something that we hear. And that way, the sound vibration is something that's probably the most powerful that can help purify all our senses. Hare Krishna. Somebody else like that, please?
Prabhuji, I would like to just discuss amongst our group. What does it mean by practically controlling our senses? So if I talk about, as what you just said, if our ears are open, only hear about Krishna, or our tongue is there, only speak about Krishna. Entire day, we cannot speak about Krishna. Entire day, we are surrounded by people who are totally material. We can't be hearing about Krishna. So practically, what can we do?
I think it's only to keep it to that level, which do not take it beyond what is expected at work. I mean, it's possible to stick to the work alone. Usually in work situations, it tends to go on and on about other things all around and everywhere around. And personally, I see that in at least the past 2 years since we've been reading the Bhagavad Gita, that the taste for such conversations goes down, and you'd rather go back to your place and maybe open up Vedavyas and read a little bit more. So the taste for these conversations would go down, which is beyond what is really work. I think we can always define what is work and what needs to be done only for the work. So anything other than that, then one can tend to cut it down, for example.
Hare Krishna. I would like to add a little bit to this, that what I think we should be more mindful the way we use our senses. Whatever we're doing, it's right that we cannot keep on thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day, because we are doing other things. We have other roles to play. So that time, obviously, it's not possible. But keeping Krishna in our subconscious mind, in the back of our mind, always, and always thinking that, always being mindful that whatever I'm speaking, what I'm hearing, what I'm doing, okay, is this pleasing Krishna or not? Okay. That way, if we are mindful about all our actions, what we are thinking, hearing, seeing, eating, and all, then I think more or less we may be able to control our senses and be Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji and Prabhuji. That's true. Anybody else would like to add to this? Because that is practically all of us face. All right, then maybe should we continue, or it's 12:15? Do we want to?
It's 9:45. We can stop. We can continue again.
Ji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ji ki